Hey, what's up? Grinding some chains. Grinding some chains. Chainsaw days. Grinding some bandsaw bands. I had a colonoscopy this morning, so they won't let me do anything, or they say I shouldn't do anything. And of course, I would just go off and do my thing, but the wife is going to keep me caged today, so I figured I'd grind some bands. For those of you who haven't seen my setup here, I'll show you in a second. I'll show you how good they come out too. I got one zip tied up over there. The good thing about the way I do it is that it's completely customizable to my angles and the gullet and the depth of the gullet, the length of the teeth, the angle of the rake of the teeth. I set them before, and there's a couple of benefits to setting them before. Number one, when you grind them, you knock a burr off the backside, so then when you set them, that can throw your set off. Because when the burr sticks off, it hits on the dial indicator, and it can be as much as 3-4 thousandths. So what you don't want is, you don't want to grind this whole band, sharpen it, and then go to set it, and you'll have one side of your set. It would be, in this case, the teeth that are leaning in towards the middle of the band would have that extra burr that's going to get wiped right off. That'll leave one side of your band completely offset by like 3 thousandths, and it'd be the whole side when the burr goes away. So you need to set them before you grind them. The second thing that it does is when you set the teeth, and so you take a band that's like this and you bend the teeth like that. A lot of times those teeth will, when they bend, they'll angle a little bit. They won't end up perfectly straight. So they'll angle a little bit. When you grind them afterwards, what you do is you grind the facet. You grind the facet that's on this tooth, regardless of which way it's bent and regardless of which way it's aimed. You grind the facet perpendicular to the travel of the band, perpendicular to the band. So every facet is ground at 0 degrees. So even if your tooth is, let's say, leaning out a little bit, let's say this tooth right here is splayed out. If you ground it first, your facet would be aimed out to the right of the band in this case. And that will affect the way it cuts. That will affect the harmonics of the band. With all the facets facing forward, perpendicular to the band, that'll cut down on the harmonics. Will it make them go away completely? Of course not. There's always going to be harmonics to the band when you're cutting. It's the of the band while it's spinning around, and it will kind of develop its own harmonics. And as they get dull, or if the set's not right, or if you're going the wrong speed for your feet per second for your teeth to engage the wood, you'll interrupt those harmonics, and that's when your band does funny shit, when it doesn't cut right. So you want to keep, to get a nice smooth flat cut, if we're not just talking about tension, you want the harmonics of the band to be very even. You want the loading of the band to be even, so the sound that the band's making should stay even the entire cut. It shouldn't go up and down, whoa, 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 like that. If it's doing that, you're going to get a wavy cut. So I set all my bands within 1,000th ish, maybe 1.5 on a dial indicator, on a setter. That's important to having your band load evenly, top and bottom, so that one side's not taking more of a cut. Also, when I do it by hand like this, I can address every tooth, which, for somebody that's in production milling, if you're out there just production milling away and you get somebody at the back that does this, or you have an automatic sharpener, you're not concerned with that. You're not concerned if you have a few whacked out teeth. For me, I kind of am. And maybe as I move forward, I won't be, but the spacing on these teeth isn't all perfect from the factory, and especially around the weld. You kind of have to custom grind around the weld a little bit because your spacing's not right. If you just throw that on an automatic machine, you're going to have times when you're hitting heavier and hitting lighter and hitting heavier and hitting lighter. Just the way that, I'll show you one variable. Actually, I'm going to take you out of the holder for a second. And this makes a big difference. A big, big difference. Especially on bands that are already ground. This band that I just did right here, this one's a fairly new band. I think this is the first time that it was ground. And so just so you're seeing, I'm grinding the gullets. I'm also, I don't know how good a view I'll be able to get, but yeah, it's not a very good view. I'd like to get a good view in focus. So I'm grinding the whole face of the tooth and the gullet, both. Oh, come on, focus. Come on, focus. You can see some of them warm up a little bit, some of them don't. Ooh, oh yeah, it's just got a black spot on the top. See the profile here. You can actually see the burr on the top of that one. So one thing that makes a big difference with where that rock will come down, and on an automatic sharpener, this would definitely make a difference on a band that's been, especially on one that's already been ground, that's got lines in here and it's not nice and smooth, is where this engages. I find when I'm sharpening bands that have been run through the sharpener a few times, I have to be very careful that engages. Sometimes it will kind of lock into a groove a little bit further back. That'll throw how much it takes off the tooth. If it's an automatic sharpener, that might happen 10, 15 times a band. And if it locks back further, you wouldn't be hitting this tooth. This one right here, you wouldn't be hitting it. So if it locks back a little bit, you would be taking more out of the gullet and not anything out of the tooth face. So doing it the way I do it, it's slow, but it allows me to address every tooth. And I can be sure that every single tooth I hit the face of. And I'm trying to, just barely kiss the face and clean up the gullet. I'll do a few for you here. It's going to get loud, so there's no reason that you don't really want to just watch someone grinding, but I kind of show you how fast it goes. It takes me about, I don't know, I would guess about, if I go straight at it without video, and maybe 5 to 10 minutes a band. So it's not as fast as an automatic one, but I address every single tooth. So what I do is I have this little extension on my holder here. I'm making sure that it's seated. And also I can adjust it if I find out in the first couple of, see, I'm barely kissing the face of that tooth. I could stop right there and that tooth's sharp. I'm going to go ahead and just wipe up the gullet a little bit too. But I can address the setup as I go. If I see that it's taking too big a bite, or sometimes in the middle of a band, if the rock wears out, it might not be taking the face of the tooth. It's just barely kissing the face of the tooth. I'll see if I go until I get one that it doesn't. It's still okay. I'll eventually hit one where it doesn't touch the face. Just barely kissing the face. You could just go right there and stop. But I'm cleaning out the gullet too. I got my rock profile to this gullet. I'm not doing a heavy job on the gullet on this one. I did do a pretty heavy job on that one where they're cleaned up completely. But it's brand new band. And this must be a pretty new band too. Alright, so you see right now it's barely touching the face. Barely. I can put a teeny bit of side pressure on it when that happens and make sure I hit the face. And usually when you have one where it barely kisses, it'll really hit the next one. Kind of want to go just a teeny bit deeper on the gullets. That cleaned the gullet out perfect. You can hear how little it's kissing the face. The only time that wouldn't be good is if the band was damaged. This allows me to see that too, so I can address if there's any damage on the band. Barely kissing. All the noises from the gullet and the vibration of it. Saw shop set up out by the mill, and my equipment shed out by the mill. All this equipment will be out there. All right, see, it's just barely sparking there, and I can just put the teeniest bit of side pressure on to make sure I get that toothpaste. If that was being an automatic, if it was in automatic mode, it would have missed that. Work on my setup on this bench. This is a finish table that we usually use for doing big panels or finishing large projects. And it's upstairs in an upstairs bedroom, so I can really only do this when there's nobody around, so it makes a fair bit of noise. I have to come up with a better support system out here on the table. Barely kissing the face of that too. There's no danger in overheating. You see I put my finger on the one that I just did. It's not overheating anything. Even if it blues up a little bit, you're not overheating the tooth. That's a real common misconception. I'll grind one. Here we go. Move it away, and you know, I can put my pinky right on it like this. This tooth's not hot. You're not overheating this tooth and taking the temper out. It's just not. So this one's barely really touching it. Just a little side pressure, and I've addressed the face. The face is the most important thing. I want to make sure I get them all. Because I want my band cutting even, and I want it using all the teeth. I'm roaching. Days that I mill, I'm basically using a band a day. So if I come up here after setting, I have 1, 2, 3. I think I have 4 bands here set. 5, 6. If I come up here and spend an hour and grind all 6 of those bands, you know, that takes care of me for a week of cutting, just with what's right here. What kind of questions would you ask? What you get this band up in the light, see if we can get it better in the light. So maybe you can see. Sorry, my wife is on 9,000 committees and charities and stuff like that, and they get a big Christmas parade coming up, and she's got stuff all over the place, including that cool typewriter right there is going to be in a veterans parade. She's on the board of a veterans group called Joe Q Coffee Break. That's going in the parade. We just took that out of the attic. It's our attic in there, which hopefully someday will be an extension of this room. So you can see that the gullets are taken out. Get my glove off. Someday I'm going to do a video on gloves. You can see that if I get this to put, that the teeth are sharp. You can see the burr on the top of the tooth there. You can see the shape. I checked the angle today that it's at 7 degrees. Sorry, it's trying to focus on what's in the background. And sometimes I don't hit that last little dinky section right there. I'm not worried about micro cracks there or anything. You know, that's as wide as this wheel will go. And that kind of moves backwards. And this, as you sharpen them more, that tooth moves this way and that grind will move up a little bit. And I can set it lower so it doesn't make that teeny little hump right there, but that doesn't affect cutting at all. You can see the burr on the top of the tooth. See the burr on the top of that tooth? See that little hook off the top? That's the burr. Once upon a time, I did take those off. I don't do it anymore. But it does, you know, a relatively good job. And the shape of this gullet will be whatever the shape of that rock is. It'll start out that way, and then the rock will slowly change shape to the band. So if I can pull this down in here, if you can see it, you can see that it's the shape of the gullet. See that? And it doesn't take very much to grind a rock like that. You know, you can use one of those little diamond dressers right there. You can use that diamond hone to take the burr off the back of the tooth if you want. But so that's what I'm up to. After I sharpen them, I'm just putting a zip tie around them so I know they're sharp, because I have bands lying all over the place. I got some rock bands up there that are going to get sharpened, and they're going to be used as trash bands when I'm cutting trash logs. I won't even set those. I'll just, well, actually, I will check them just because they're rocked. These bands are all set. You can see that set for the grinder. Those are set. But there's those are telling me to pay attention because I have a different gullet profile on the Turbo 7s, and I don't want to do those right now. This one right here. Turbo 7s, the tooth is taller, and the gullet profile is just a teeny bit different, so my rock has to be reground for that band. So I don't want to touch that band yet. I want to keep grinding on these saber tooth bands since my rock's perfect for them, and just keep using them up. And I'll do all the saber tooth bands later when I get through these bands. So I've got a big box of Turbo 7, so I don't need to start sharpening them yet. But that's kind of what I'm up to. You know, it's a little bit cold out. I got the wood stove cooking. If I'm going to try to do some milling tomorrow, it's going to be cold. So I'm not sure. I've got one thing to do for a customer. It's going to make a canoe paddler. He needs a piece for a canoe paddle. He's making a canoe paddle. So very specific width, very specific species. This particular one's going to be out of maple that I already have dried. I had to do some resawing I have 2.5 inch thick and 3.5 inch thick slabs that he needs 6/4. So I was going to either have to resaw a chunk out of a slab, trim it down sideways into a board, and then resaw it. But the slab cut that I took off this one particular pile of slabs is pretty thick, and I think I can take this whole board out of the slab cut, and it's dry. So I'm going to try that. And if that doesn't work, if there's some weird checking or something in it or some imperfections in it, then I'll just take a slab. I'll cut a 10-inch wide board out of it and then slap it down on the mill, buck it down and resaw it thinner, so he doesn't have a huge variety of tools to be able to break the stock down. So I'll get it closer for him. So that's pretty much what I'm up to. And I'm going to zip through the rest of this band while there's nobody home, not interrupting anyone, and get these down in my sawmill box, and hopefully I'll be running these tomorrow. So if I do, you'll see it on video. So hope you guys are having a great day. Colonoscopy prep and everything went well, except that I wasn't totally cleaned out, so they didn't go all the way, so they want me to do another one within a year, which sucks. Pisses me off. I followed the instructions to a T, and I guess I wasn't totally cleaned out. So I'm going to see if I can zip through this, get some lunch, and that's what's going on. So appreciate the watch, and hope you guys are having a great day. If you have any questions, hit me up. If you have any suggestions, hit me up. And yeah, that's it. So this Pirate Solutions out.